Welcome to the Interviews podcast, where slow conversations celebrate the power of the pen. My name is Jackee Holder, and I am the host of the Interviews podcast. And this week, we are delighted to welcome Laura Rubin onto the podcast. She's just recently published her new book, The Big Unlock: Liberate Your Creativity Through Mindful Journaling. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with Laura today. I found her work really refreshing in the journaling space. She has this ability to kind of flip things around to get you to think about some of the age-old journaling techniques and to kind of give a different spin on journaling. And I think Laura has really held up the space about bringing journaling into community and working with corporates in the journaling space and really showing how useful and purposeful journaling can be. We talk everything journaling from the 75 journaling exercises that are included in the book. We go into her cancer diagnosis and how journaling worked during that time. It might not be what you expect in terms of what she shares. And so I hope you enjoy this conversation. I certainly did. And I'll share a little bit about what I took away from the conversation at the end of the past podcast. So I hope you enjoy listening to today's conversation with Laura Rubin. Hi, Laura. It is wonderful to have you here and welcome to the Interviews podcast. You are one of the early guests, our second guest on the podcast, and we are so excited to have you join us. You look like you're in the beach house or somewhere in the sunshine in America, or are you in New York?
I am in a little beach town. It's a sleepy beach town, 9 months of the year called Sag Harbor, and the other 3 months
Oh,
it is very busy. And that's when I pull the drawbridge up and I keep my orbit very tight.
lovely. So it looks like it's a really sunny day where you are. And it's really interesting because I'm here in London and we've had the sunniest day, I think, for the whole year. And it is so warm.
Congratulations.
It's been so cold and so miserable. So we've got a lot to talk about, Laura.
It's
You
a
know,
delay. It's a delay. You are one of my compatriots in this mindful writing revolution that we are building
absolutely.
together.
I describe us as kindred spirits. We found each other. As
Truly.
soon as I came across your work, I thought I want to speak to her. I want to get to know her. I particularly love your newsletters and your posts and your writing. And I'll share a little bit more so that our listeners get to know how we got to meet each other. But first of all, I want to say a huge congratulations on
Mm.
the publication of The Big Unlock. Now, I read a lot of books. Before I blurred my background, you would have seen loads of books in the behind me. Every single room in my house is filled with books. Any book on journaling that comes my way, I just interested in them. But yours, this is like super special. And I was saving it up for today because I thought, you know what, I'm not going to say anything to Laura. I'm just going to read it and I'm going to say what I felt about the book when we get to have this conversation. It's great.
Oh,
It's earthy, it's practical, it is chock a block with gems. I've been around the journaling world for a long time,
I know you have.
really long time. But you know a good book when you see it. You've captured like the essence of journaling, and I really like the simplicity, but also the depth. That's what I found. It's divided into three parts. And as I went through each part, it got deeper and deeper. And
Yes.
I cried in one part.
Oh. I'm sorry I made you cry,
In
but
a good way,
I'm glad I made you cry.
in a good way, Laura.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, I mean, for somebody who is very much steeped in this world, to still come across prompts that move us, I think that's a testament to the writer and the energy that they're bringing to the writing. So, before we begin, why don't we start with who are you?
Oh
How
my
do you
goodness.
show up in the world? Why are
Sure.
you doing what you do?
Yes. I'll be honest here. I still do not know how to describe what I do for a living. So if any of your listeners come up with a great job title, they will get a free copy of the book because it has been over 12 years of my doing this work and I still don't quite know what to put on my business card. Journaling expert, I guess, would be the closest thing to a job title. I'm also the founder of a company called Allswell Creative that is dedicated to propagating this work in the world via products, experiences, curriculum. And it is an honor and a pleasure to be bringing people to the page. So that's I guess the job title to the extent that I have figured it out. But practically what it means is that I get to spend time researching, writing, and communing with people, all bringing them to the page and witnessing what happens. And it is, I have to say, I think I have the best job in the world. I get to watch the seed crack open, to use Hafez's line. It really is. Consistent. I have never not seen it happen in the hundreds of journaling, no, thousands of journaling workshops I've led at this point, and it's really incredible to see.
So, the interviews podcast is the subtitle of it is Where Slow Conversations Celebrate the Power of the Pen.
Mm.
So when you use that word, you or when you introduce a quote by Hafiz, you said split the seed open.
The seed cracks open.
The seed cracks open. What is it that you're seeing in those workshops that really brings that quote to life?
One of the things that I love about this work as a facilitator of these journaling, these group journaling workshops, is that it is not about me. There is a lot of self-appointed guruism right now in the wellness world. And personally, I have advice overwhelm, I have advice fatigue, and I certainly look to experts from time to time. But I feel like right now there is so much conflicting information coming at us. And journaling is a way to come home to ourselves, to
Mm,
land in that knowing, to be
mm,
able to peel away all the external programming and come home to ourselves. And what's there is often truths that were just waiting for us to come home. And then you know them, you will never unknow them, and then you can use your journal as a way to then practically
yeah.
plan into that vision, into those truths, how to implement it, how to gather resources and recruit assistance and support. All of that's available in the pages of a journal. In terms of the seed cracking open, what
Hmm.
I get to witness, of course, I'm a skilled facilitator by now. I have done this a lot in various
Hmm.
different groups, diverse settings, but it is the process of someone coming home to themselves.
Hmm.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
And they light up. And
Yeah.
it's often not, it's often the people that started in the workshop with their arms crossed because they had to be there because their
Yeah.
manager made them show up. They're
Yeah.
the ones often that have the biggest unlock. And
Yes.
they say, that was incredible. I just realized that I've never
Yeah.
done ba. I just realized that what I really want is ba. I just finally understood da. And it happens over and over again.
Beautiful. And I guess this is why we just dive in where we dive in. I've had a whole list of questions for you, but I knew we would start where we needed to start. Throughout your book, you describe a lot of the people that come on your workshops, and some of them are those people that are sitting there with their arms crossed. A lot of
Yes.
them are journalists, because I know your background comes from the media world and marketing. And I remember, I think it was chapter 13, the economy attention, when
Oh, sure.
you were writing about, digital distraction. And it's almost like you just went right to the heart of it. You was like, you talk about how we can use our journals to focus our attention and not get carried away by all of the information overload that is like coming into our system. I'm wondering if you could start to share with us a couple of the exercises or the journaling prompts that you shared in that section. I
So the
remember them.
Okay, well, I'm glad you do because
Yeah.
there are 75 different prompts in the book, and I don't have them
Yeah.
all memorized by
No, no,
chapter.
no. So one of the ones that you talked about was focusing on an object and writing about that object.
Oh, I love that
Um,
prompt so much.
yeah.
I love that prompt.
What do you
Yeah.
love about it?
I love it because you have the opportunity and so in the book, I am asking people to focus their attention on any object and
Mm-hmm.
pick something, look at it, be
Mm-hmm.
aware of it, be aware of the shape, the color, the texture, even like the space that it takes up, the empty space around it.
Mm-hmm.
Challenge yourself to just gaze and meditate for a moment on an object and then tell the story of that object. Now, it can be something deeply meaningful, like a pen that was given to you by a grandparent, but it can also be something complete, just something random and an
Mm-hmm.
everyday quotidian item like your refrigerator. It doesn't have to be something precious.
Yeah.
And when you dive into what the story is of that particular thing, what it means to you, what it represents to you, what it's about, what materials it's made of, etc., all of a sudden you are firing up your imagination, you
Yeah.
are present, you are engaged in writing in a way that isn't just complaining on the page, which is,
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest, the little black dress of journaling, and there is a time and place for that. But sometimes I want to jump out of that mind chatter and get to a more creative space.
Yeah.
So by using just an object, you can do that. And
Yeah.
it's available to you anywhere, anytime. You don't need to be at a fancy meditation retreat. You don't need a special outfit or a copay. This is any object, anytime.
I love it because, for example, yesterday I was working with a group of senior leaders in the NHS here in the UK. And
Yes,
one of the first things, this whole session was on journal writing. And one of the first things I asked them was, how many of you journal? Out of like 25 women, one woman put her hand up.
interesting.
Yeah. And for the rest of them, even though they were aware of what journaling was, most of them feel that they do not have the time.
Right.
Their attention is sucked up in so many other things. So, to be able to even just focus in creating space to do that journaling is really difficult. And I think practices like this, which are what I really, really enjoyed about your book, is that they're really short exercises. I know there was a few longer ones, but
Mhm.
most of them are short. They're really simple, but they have, it's almost like your rational brain is also behind them, because
Yes.
this is a great example of not being, not allowing the digital distraction to take you away from yourself. And even in that chapter, you went on to talk about paying attention to the things that you pay attention to every day,
Yes.
and then to think about the things that you don't pay attention to, but you would like to. And I thought, look, genius, because for most women, we're trying to find our voices. We're trying to get back to ourselves on the page. And this and in our lives. So this is a great way of working out, well, what is taking up? What's consuming my attention?
We are in a constant state of react and respond from the
Mm,
moment we look at these brilliant little computers that we hold in our hands. And our attention is bought and sold as a commodity. And
yeah.
the opportunity for the reclamation of some of our attention is nothing short of an act of rebellion,
Mm,
particularly for somebody who says they are too busy to journal.
yeah.
That's why I came up with the 4 by 4 by 4 approach. When
Love
people
that.
tell me they are too busy to journal,
Yeah.
I say, okay, do you have 4 minutes? Not even five, 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Almost everybody says yes. And I say, okay, don't do it every day. I'm not asking you to do this every day. Journal for 4 minutes at a time, journal
Yeah.
4 days a week, and then stick with it for 4 weeks. Now, this isn't whole 30. If you fall off the wagon, it's okay. You don't have to start all over. Just bring yourself back to the practice and keep going. But what you're doing is you're setting the bar at a very realistic, reasonable
Yeah.
place so that you're
Yes.
giving yourself a dopamine hit from the gamification of achieving the goal. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like my approach is really meeting people where they are neurologically. Our brains are so different now. They are playing catch up on so many different levels, given the fact that we are we are navigating all of this
So
new
much.
data and
Yeah.
technology. And I have so much respect for Julia Cameron. She is the OG of journaling. Her book, The Artist's Way, is exquisite. It is important. It is beautiful. But it was also written before social media,
No phone.
email,
Yeah.
or even the internet was available to consumers.
Yeah.
So reasonably speaking, while the artist way is, by the way, every I think every human being should read this book, but it is not necessarily the right starting point for where we are now. I think of my approach as really building a bigger tent,
Yeah.
and I'm able to invite more people in, and maybe they'll start with me and they'll move on to Julia Cameron, and that's great too, or Natalie Goldberg's Writing Down the Bones,
Yeah.
or whatever. There are so many incredible writers in this
Yeah.
space. But I specifically, my approach is grounded in peer-reviewed science for those people who need that left brain sense of this being legitimate, and really trying to bring people into initially, like, let's just step into the ocean together before we dive in to the big waves.
I love
And by
those.
the way, there is some big wave surfing in the book for sure, but
There are.
it isn't until we get to the meaty stuff towards the end of the back.
So you want to invite people into a bigger tent. You want to invite people to step into the ocean before we step into the waves. And that is a really good way of describing the book, actually, because it feels like you've really tailored it to these modern times. Because when I started writing The Artist's Way, I was in my 30s, and honestly, I wasn't distracted with my phone.
Of
I
course.
could do those 3 pages of longhand.
Yes.
It's like, and I delighted in lying in bed and taking my time and writing those 3 pages. And it was very
Beautiful.
cathartic, it was very therapeutic, but we are living in different times. And I know that for me, I talk about 7 minutes, and this came out of, do very similar to yourself, doing the kind of group sessions with lots of women journaling together and watching a group just totally go to a deeper place by just having 7 minutes where they were not interrupted and
Mhm.
just having that time to write. But I absolutely love the 4 minutes, 4 minutes of writing 4 times a week. That means anyone can do it, really.
Yes.
You've not got
Yes.
an opportunity to say I haven't done it perfectly. And keep it going. I love it for 4 weeks of the month. Very, very doable. So there is so much I want to pick out, you know, sort of cherry pick out of the book, honestly, because I want the listeners to leave here feeling like I want to go and buy that book because there's
Uh,
just so much goodness in there. But I was thinking about, all right, so what were some of the things that really resonated for me right now? And I love the way you are very granular about how you went into each of the 75 journaling techniques and tools that you have in the book, because there's sort of like little twists on them. So rather than a list of writing about the things that you love, when I think about writing about the things that I love, it feels like it's got to be really, really big. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And then you just kind of really just turn that around and you said, write the like list. Do you know?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
little things,
Yes.
the glimmers in our days. Could you tell us
Yes.
more about that?
Yes. So this is an exercise that I use in workshops to get people warmed up. And it's also a way to use your journal as a way to shift your mood into a more positive mindset quickly. So when you're having a grouchy day and you want to shift things, a like list is a really easy,
Mm,
accessible, and enjoy something you can enjoy doing. And specifically, it is to write down things that you like. I
yes.
also recommend using your five senses. So
Hmm.
sights, sounds, textures, tastes, etc., that you like. Now, I challenge anybody to do this and not feel at least 35% better after
I'm
doing
feeling it
it.
already,
Yeah.
just
And
talking about it.
yes. And it sounds really simple, but actually, it is bringing your mind to positive places from your memory banks. And what's really gorgeous about this is that it's a neurological hack because anxiety is a future focused worry, as an
Hmm.
example, right? In contrast. So anxiety is actually a form of creativity. We're scanning for threats, throwing ourselves into the future and imagining these negative things to actually occurring. Now, our minds are so powerful that our bodies don't know the difference between whether we are just thinking about the tiger
Yeah.
coming for us or if the tiger's actually coming for us. So we're having these heightened reactions just to the thought. Now, the opposite thing can happen as well. If we are starting to imagine things that bring us pleasure and joy,
Hmm.
especially things that are embodied, we are bringing ourselves into a more positive mind state, and you're giving yourself a lovely serotonin bath
Yeah.
in the process. So that shift is available to us simply by writing down things that we like. Now, what's really fun is if you do this on a semi-consistent basis, if you make a practice of it, then you are walking through life noticing and making note of, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. I like that. So that's like one way it can infiltrate your life to bring you more
Yeah.
joy, appreciation, and pleasure. The other thing I like to do is write down at the beginning of each season this like list about this season.
Oh, I
So
love that.
yeah. So that because we move through time and space so quickly now that it's really like, is it spring? Is it winter? Is it fall? Like, where are we? What's going?
Yeah.
And this is a way to actually ground yourself in the shift of season. And then you are thinking about, well, what is it that I most appreciate and enjoy about this particular season? Using your five senses, write those things down. And it could be something simple, like, it's summer. I love a peach crostata. You know what? You are
Yeah.
more likely to make the time to go make that peach crostata
Yeah.
than if you hadn't written it down.
Yeah.
It helps you better prioritize the things because you're bringing your attention to them.
Yeah. So you've really emphasized how important it is because we're really hardwired for the negativity bias.
Yes.
We're much more synchronized to go to the negative. And I think I was thinking about one of the things that one of the women leaders said yesterday in a workshop. She said, it's so much harder to think about the good stuff because we don't use those muscles as much. So I really like that these kinds of exercises and journal prompts are in the diary, but you're actually explain that are in the book, but you're actually explaining why they help and
Yes.
how they create better outcomes for us. And
The
I feel,
woman
go ahead,
The
Laura.
woman that
Sorry.
you were referring to is talking about how I'm sorry to jump, but it's such a good
No,
point.
go.
I want to make sure that we linger on it. The woman that you were saying it's harder to focus on the good things. It's not it's not her fault, right?
Yeah,
It's not your fault that that is the way that you are built. It is evolutionary.
that's right.
It's
Yeah.
because we are built to scan for threats.
Yes.
And that is how we got here.
Yeah.
So it's natural that that we have this negative bias. It isn't something that was bad, but
Yeah.
we no longer require it to
In this,
maintain ourselves, our safety in the same way.
yeah.
So actually, this practice is a way of simply balancing the scales so that we are more naturally optimistic, positive, creative,
Yeah.
visionary, thoughtful. And the good news is that particularly around a gratitude practice, like the studies show, you become a person that more people want to be around by shifting to becoming a more positive person. You become more magnetic, and I don't mean it in the sense of like manifestation, because that's like a whole other thing. What I'm simply talking about is like the neuroscience.
You become a better leader. You become a better person. That's
Yes,
one of the things we were talking about yesterday, is that the more we can do this sort of inner reflection and do this quality kind of work on ourselves, the better we show up in the world. We are better equipped to serve other people. So, I think the word magnetic is a really purposeful word. And as you said, not in the terms of manifestation, but in terms of the kind of person that you become to
yes,
yourself and who you
yes.
become to other people. Yeah. There's so much that we're kind of that's already coming out of the book. And I think just to stay a little bit longer and follow this thread, one of the things that you talk about, well, first of all, you introduce the kind of journal writing that you write about in the Big Unlock as mindful writing. And I
Yes,
think you've mentioned the word senses a lot. So you're really inviting the reader to to connect more viscerally with their body, with their emotions, with the through the senses. But one of the
yes,
things that you introduced was this idea of this question around meditation. Do you journal and you meditate? Do you meditate and then you journal? And I really thought that was such an important point because, of course, the challenge is to, not just only journal, but to have the time to meditate.
mm.
And I think you make some important points there.
I am not the world's greatest meditator, and I don't purport to be. I have a very simple meditation practice that I utilize, and it's great. One of the things that people have come to me and asked is, can you do a brief meditation before we kick off the workshop? And I say, no, that is a whole other lineage. It's a whole other discipline. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for it. So if you would like us to include him, could I? Sure. Should I? No. I am not a meditation expert. I am a journaling expert. So when people ask me to do that, I say I have a list of incredible meditation experts that I can bring in to do that. So I just want to start with that in terms of like clarifying. I stay in my lane. However, um, this idea of the interaction between meditation and journaling is a very interesting one.
Yeah.
And people ask me, should I do it before or after?
Yeah.
And my approach is try both and see what works best
Yeah.
for you. And
Mm-hmm.
instead of it being formulaic, I think there's so much more in the exploration and the agency of actually asserting for oneself and checking in with oneself. Wait, that was remarkable. Or no, that didn't feel right. That wasn't so great for me. And also staying flexible enough to know you might want to shift around from time.
Yeah.
So if you meditate before you journal, sometimes what happens is something comes up in the meditation,
Yeah.
um, concept, image, thought, etc. And then you can bring that to the page
Yeah.
and you can expound on it and
Yeah.
and you can unpack it and see what's there for you. Other times, by journaling first, you are getting rid of the mind chatter, emptying everything out
Yeah.
on the page, and then you are able to have a more placid and rich meditation
Yeah.
space. So there's positive on both sides. And again, my perspective is try them both.
Yeah.
See what works for you.
And I think that's something that you're encouraging everyone throughout the book is to find their own route, to make this their own. And, as you said, it might, what's going to work for me. I meditate first and then I journal. That's working for me right now. But later on down the road, who knows, that rhythm may change for me. And I
Yes.
might do it the other way round. And it's the same with so many of your readers of the book as well, and I really like that. And it reminds me, I did a workshop years ago, and in the middle of the workshop, after we'd done some a short meditation and some journaling, this woman just said, really, really, with her heart on her hand, she goes, "But I'm a meditator. I can't do journaling as well."
Right.
Do you know what I
Right.
mean? And it was
Yes.
almost like it was an either or. And she just
Yeah.
looked at me like, "You've messed everything up. I'm a meditator, but I can see that the journaling is good." And I really did, it kind of that chapter really reminded me of that moment when I reflected back to her, what if you could do a combination of both?
Yes. And I also feel that there is so much self-care stress right now and self-care guilt. The list of the things that we are told we should participate in order to be able to be the best version of ourselves is long. And what I'm trying to do with my approach is not make it too prescriptive. And some of the publishers that I actually decided not to work with
Yeah,
came back and said, "Well, we need this to be more prescriptive. We need it to be like a bullet journal. We need it to be the 5-minute journal." And I said, "Well, those books exist and they're great for people who want that, but that is not my approach." And so I ended up with a wonderful publisher and a wonderful editor that really appreciated my approach, which is to give people various different reasons, times, places, ways to implement the act of putting pen to paper mindfully in order to have really significant results. But one size does not fit all. And I certainly have seen that in the thousands of people that I have led through workshops, that one of the most exciting things for me is when people take a prompt and they make it their own.
yeah,
They don't necessarily stick with it because creativity is not about answering the question correctly. It is about diving in and seeing what's there for you.
yeah. Do you know what? I hope you notice I'm writing loads down as we're talking because even though I'm doing the interview, I feel like there's so many threads that are kind of coming out from this conversation. So for those of you who are viewing the viewing the video, just know that, this is a very interactive process here. I feel like as much as I'm asking the questions, I'm getting so much out of this for myself. And one of the things that just hit me that you just said, Laura, is that I nearly got a book deal last year to write my tree book, the one that I've been
I
talking
love
to
the
you
tree
about.
book.
Yeah,
The
the
tree book.
tree
I'm so
book.
excited to read the tree book when it lives.
Well, it'll be here, but one of the things that I was really I didn't quite recognize it at the time, but what I realized is I was being asked to be really prescriptive.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really took away from your book was it was very spacious,
Yes.
and I listened to a lot of courses on Insight Timer, and they're very short and they leave a lot of space for you to think and for you to feel. And I realized I was feeling quite hemmed in with trying to write this tree book that was like, you've got to make it relevant to the tree that you're writing about. And of course, my experience with the trees is not like that. So it's really, really heartening to hear you say that you purposely chose a publisher that was aligned with your philosophy of journaling and
Yes.
your lived experience of journaling. And perhaps this
Yes.
is a nice segue into I really would like our listeners and viewers to hear a little bit more about you, because I know that when you were in your early 30s, you walked through a very difficult
Mm,
diagnosis at the time. And I know that you have spoken about it, you've written about it, but I also get a sense that it's also a tender place for you.
sure.
And I really want to respect that as well. And so the question is really around, how did journaling, or was journaling a part of that time in your life, or the recovery part that followed that diagnosis?
Jackie, what you're referring to is being diagnosed at the age of 31 with very aggressive breast cancer. And I have no history in my family. I don't have any genetic mutations. And it was a complete shock to my family, to my community. And at the time, 31 was a wild outlier. Unfortunately, now many more young women are being diagnosed with cancer, younger and younger. But
Mm,
at the time, 31 was really shocking.
mm-hmm.
So I'm incredibly fortunate. June 16th will be my 20-year cure anniversary.
Oh,
I
God.
am beyond,
Wow.
here by the grace, my friends, here by the
Yeah.
grace. And part of why I've committed myself to this work is because of the realization, like, kid, you are lucky. Don't waste it. Don't waste it. Do something, do something beautiful. Do something that moves you. Do something that matters. Do something that helps others. What is that? What does that look like? And so that has certainly informed all of this work. Now, I'm very open about being a breast cancer survivor, but it isn't actually a huge part of my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not, I mention it in the book because it was a paradigm shift. And I think that it's a part of the story that's very useful for others to read. Also, a brush with your own mortality
Mm-hmm.
is the big reset.
Yeah.
It is it's like factory reset. You are going to be different. And what's interesting is that, well, to finish that thought, one of the reasons why I felt compelled to share is that you don't actually need, I don't want people to have the brush with death in order to get the benefit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I shared my story as a way of, I hope for those of you who have had something similar, that you feel a sense of kinship and community, you feel seen. And for those of you who have not, you don't have to go through it in order
Yeah.
reap the benefits.
Yeah.
So when people ask me about, was journaling a big part of your healing journey? The answer is not what most people expect. I journaled very little during chemotherapy and
Mm-hmm.
radiation. My brain fog was so intense that
Mm-hmm.
going into this period of surgeries, et cetera, I thought, oh, this will be my quiet period. I'll finally read the Russians. Like this was what I thought I was going to be doing. I was lucky if I could sit through an episode of Seinfeld. I was fortunate if I could read a People magazine.
Mm-hmm.
My brain was shot.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what I was going through was so terrifying. I couldn't afford at that time
Yes.
parse it out. Going in every other week and having medical poison poured into your body is not something that I did not emotionally have available to me the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to sit down and write about how I felt about it. It was, okay, like armor goes on, blinders on, get through it.
Yeah.
Where where the journaling came in was
Mm-hmm.
on the other side. Once I had made it through the worst part of it, everybody kind of high fives and goes back to their lives. And then you're sitting there
Yeah.
going, what the actual F just happened?
Yeah.
And in naming it, integrating it, you're supposed to go back to your life. You're not the same person. You don't even look the same yet. So that was where for me journaling was most powerful at
Yeah.
that stage of trying to make peace with it, trying to understand it, trying
Yeah.
to meet the new version of myself because you're not going to be the same person.
Yeah.
The other place where it really came into play and continues to is survivor's guilt.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of the women that I went through that experience with are no longer here.
Mm.
So being able to accommodate those emotions, the page has been hugely helpful. So
I'm,
probably not the answer most people expect, but the real answer.
do you know, I really appreciate the real answer because I feel like you've just given us a dose of medicine by sharing the reality of what it was like to go through that diagnosis, the treatment, but also how the page was able to be a source, a resource for you, the other side. Do you know? And this is the thing, it's almost like we have journals for different seasons, don't we?
Yes.
And that was a season that your journal was the place where you were able to name it, you were able to integrate it, you were able to make peace with what had just happened to you, which is where for a lot of people sometimes they don't know how to do that.
Yes.
And this is why I wanted us to talk about it. Because I think for me, one of the things we say at the School of Journaling is that journaling is a skills-based practice. In other words, there are all these different tools and approaches that you can draw from. And I think what you've just shared there is an example of how journaling became a resource to you during a difficult time and a time of recovery, but how you were able to really make it work, but also with that, the survivor's guilt to make some sense and meaning of that. It doesn't mean it goes away completely.
No, of
Doesn't
course
mean it
not.
doesn't, rear its head at different times, but you've got some way of alchemizing that
Yes.
with the journal.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us,
Of
Laura.
course.
Yeah,
Yes.
it feels really important.
If my health journey can help others then I didn't go through that suffering for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it leads me to just go back a little bit to think about the younger Laura.
Sure.
And the Laura who first came to the page with a pen. And I'm curious, how old were you? What's your earliest memory of writing in a journal?
I still remember being given my first journal. I was 7 years old, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
gift from my mother. And it was blue. It said "Dear Diary" on the cover, and it had a little gold lock on the side, like
Mm,
very, very iconic and typical of
mm-hmm.
the time. And I still have it. And I started,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
You
And
still have that journal?
yeah, I've got it on my bookshelf, right? Maybe three
Wow.
yards away from me. Absolutely. And because my journals are somehow sacred to
Yeah.
me, I rarely reread them, but there's a sacred power that they hold for me, and so I keep them. But it was really something that my mother intuited that I would benefit from. And boy,
Mm-hmm.
she was more right than she could have ever imagined, that this is now my career. And it was really, really cool. I had my first book tour event last Sunday here locally, and my 88-year-old mother was in the front row, and I was able to thank her for giving me that journal, set me
Mm.
on this path that neither of us could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
But I have been a consistent journaler my whole life. Going back to that, when I was a single digit, and it has always been an intuitive
Yeah.
uh, resource for me. And it wasn't until I started Allswell that I found out, having put these gender neutral, design forward products out into the marketplace before I had any curriculum or even thought about ever doing a workshop. It was when I put the materials out into the marketplace that the market taught me that this
Mm-hmm.
that I'd been doing my whole life intuitively, and with like ease and joy. People have an enormous number of hangups around. They think they're bad at it. They think it's selfish. They think they need to have good handwriting or be a good writer. They're afraid someone's going to read it. All of these things. I have heard them almost all at this point, but it was hearing from people that made me say, I think I could put together a curriculum, invite people to the page, and help unlock some of that stuff so that they can reap the rewards.
Yeah.
And that was where the workshops came from.
Well, what a very wise mother to see that in her daughter and to see what her daughter needed. It's just really, really great to hear that. And she gets to see you at your
Yeah.
first book tour of many. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
of many, that's
Of
gonna
many.
obviously the way forward. And it kind of reminded me, when I was reading the book, I started laughing when I read the chapter on boredom because you told was it I think was it the chapter on boredom or the chapter on about water? Because your company's called All's Well.
Yes.
I didn't get it till I read that chapter.
Yes.
All Do you mind telling us about how you came that and how your journal helped you to arrive at
Yes.
that
Yes.
title?
Absolutely. So the name of my company is All Swell, as in all's well. As
Uh,
it's
I
double pronunciation. People say which one? I'm like both. But I am a surfer, and at the time, this was many years ago, I was running my marketing communications agency and working long hours, and I loved what I did, but I
hmm
actually had a rare day off. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to go surfing. I'm going to go to the beach. And this was in Montauk. And I showed up, and I knew that like the waves were going to be small, but it didn't matter. I just wanted to get out there. Baby waves are great. It was a lake. Let me tell you, there wasn't so
flat.
much ripple. There
Nothing
was
happening.
nothing to ride. I got totally skunked. And I went, okay, okay. So instead of pivoting and trying to get a tennis lesson or see if someone wants to meet for lunch or do something else, I'm just going to be here. I always have a journal in my beach bag. So spread out my towel. It was a gorgeous day. Went and got a cup of tea from the local Ditch Witch caravan,
Hmm.
sat down, just enjoyed myself, actually tuned into my senses, witnessed the conversations that were happening around me, watching people in and out of the ocean, enjoying the sun on my skin and being quiet. And I wrote down swell or no swell, all's well. And I went,
Mm,
okay, there we go. That's the name of my company. And
beautiful.
I'd come up with this idea for a journal for with a write and draw journal, but I
Yes.
hadn't come up with the brand kind of identity and
Yeah.
concept. And as a brand marketer, I knew I needed that
Yeah.
as a way of orienting the products in a place that didn't feel too cute, that didn't feel like something that would just appeal to the people that were already journaling. I was
Yeah.
trying to get into different cultural tranches as a
Yeah.
way of delivering the goods.
Lovely. I love it. And but the fact that we can sometimes get these great ideas, but there's no notebook around.
Yeah.
Like the fact that you say that you go everywhere. Look, I buy bags depending on their size. Can it fit me notebook in?
Love it. Love it.
You know,
Yes.
going on raving, going out to meet friends. Can I chuck me notebook in?
Yes.
Because ideas come and go, don't they?
Yes.
And when the brain gets to rest, that's when the mind has that, that word you used earlier, to reset. And the ideas, when you're not distracted, where you're not being pulled, you're not going into fight and flight, the ideas can come.
Yes.
But
But we are in a constant state of react and respond. There's so little time for boredom now
so little
because
time.
when we're standing in line, what do we do?
Get our phones
Get our
out.
phones. And by the way, we stand in line a lot less because of e-commerce and
Absolutely.
apps and other things that are highly convenient, but have stopped the amount of time that we are physically in a space waiting, waiting,
Yeah.
waiting for a bus, waiting for a train,
Yeah.
etc. If you look at around, everybody's on their phone.
Yeah. Definitely.
So the reclamation of some of that time and like actually choosing, I am not going to deflect to that. I'm not going to defer to
Yeah.
that. Give
Yeah.
myself a little blank space.
Yes. It's making me think, I think you said something else in the book around what we can do to not allow ourselves to move to our phones, something around just going to the page first rather than reaching for your phone,
Yes,
go into your notebook. Like I go downstairs in my bedroom with my notebook. I have my journal that I'm writing in. I also have what I call my common purpose book, which is where I make notes or write down quotes and things like that. And I make
right.
sure I have both of them around me because honestly, honest truth, Instagram will steal my time.
Sure. It's built to do it, and it's
Absolutely.
really good at it.
It's really
Right?
good. Dopamine hit quick. Oh, let's see any likes, anyone commented, and it's just so easy to allow yourself to kind of, it's like seductive. So I have,
Utterly seductive.
so I,
Yes. And it's one of the things I don't want people to feel shame or guilt
no,
that these things are stealing our time and attention.
yeah,
They are built by brilliant people to manipulate us specifically. And when people feel badly that they aren't asserting themselves naturally and without some support, I just say, please don't be so hard on yourself. This we are we are being gamed, right?
Yeah.
So by crowding out and giving yourself what, the practice that you're talking about is like, okay, you're swapping. So instead of saying, okay, I'm going to do nothing, you are swapping one activity for another,
Yeah.
and that second activity being putting pen to paper, even if you are just doodling, even if you don't have to be writing down deep thoughts. Write down words you like, write down whatever. Use a prompt, spend 4 minutes doing it. That will be 4 minutes better spent than scrolling. And by the way, scrolling 4 minutes easily turns into an hour.
Yeah.
So by actually like changing the activity, you're crowding out the negative by bringing in the good.
Yeah. Definitely. And one of the things I notice when I scroll, my energy goes right down. I actually
Mm,
feel yucky.
mm.
I can't really say that I come out of my journal pages and feel like that. This sort of like, and so that's a signal to me about which activity actually makes me feel better.
Yeah. And that's really advanced, right, Jackee, that you are even able to witness how you feel as it
Hmm.
relates to different practices. Most people do not have that
True.
level of embodiment.
Yeah.
Um, and I invite them to consider that question, because most of us aren't even educated that that matters,
Yeah.
right? That how we actually feel as it relates to something, that it doesn't matter, because we're so focused on what we're being told is about productivity,
Hmm.
that that is like the mindset of what we follow at
Hmm.
all costs, right?
Hmm.
So this idea of embodiment and reclamation through the act of pen to paper is
Hmm.
a fairly radical shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're gonna have to start to wrap up our conversation today. I could go on and on, but just that last comment that you made about the body.
Yes.
There was a moment in reading your book where I shed a few tears, well, quite a lot actually, but not in a negative way. It was a moment of connection, enlightenment, just kind of, and I guess the best word is embodied. And it was in the chapter around the body.
What about it triggered that that open that open reaction, that emotional purge for you?
I mentioned earlier in our conversation that I found that many of the prompts you got quite granular.
Mhm.
And it was when you invited us to write about and appreciate a part of the body, which is an
Yes.
exercise that I've given before, I've done before. But then, you said if it was your hand, go to a finger,
Yeah.
but also to keep doing it repeatedly because it's not about just a one shot. And I was like, oh, like my body needs to be reminded of how much I value it and appreciate it and what it does for me, and it just really spoke to me. And it was a moment of like shedding tears for appreciation of the body that I'm in and
Yes.
recognition that I'm not thanking it enough. And
Mm.
honestly, I was so moved by
I'm so
that.
glad that that connected with you. And certainly, again, it's I have experienced my body healing in ways that are profound and frankly miraculous. Once you stop to actually consider that, and you also are learning about the subtlety, the intricacy of all of our parts,
Absolutely.
how could we not just
Mm,
fall to our knees in appreciation for
mm,
like the remarkable thing that is taking a breath?
yeah.
And yet, particularly as women, we chop ourselves up into little bits,
Hmm.
and each bit is evaluated separately, and nothing but the perfection of the sum of all of its parts will do.
Hmm.
And that is not a useful paradigm.
Mm,
Now, I'm subject to it too. I don't pretend to be above, like enjoying looking my best. I'm in front of people for a living, and I
mhm.
don't want my appearance to be distracting,
Yeah.
right? So I want to be pleasant to look at because then that goes away and people
Yeah.
are able to focus on what I'm sharing with them.
Yes.
But also, there's something so much more just awe-inspiring when you think about how beautiful all of these systems are.
Yeah.
And to be able to meditate on that one finger at a time or whatever works for you,
Hmm.
there is so much waiting for you there.
Yeah.
So much dignity, so much
Yeah.
appreciation. Yeah,
And
I'm
I
really
think
glad that landed.
it really did. Oh, I think there was I think it was in a chapter on water, where you got people to write about the bodies of water that they appreciated.
Mm.
And somebody wrote about the water in their cells. And I
Ah,
was
yes.
like,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. She's a pro surfer named Leah Dawson, and
Yeah.
I expected her to name like a big wave surf break or something.
Yeah.
And instead she said, in asking her about the body of water that was most meaningful to her, she said the water in each of her cells.
Yeah.
And I didn't include her name in the book, but it was Tyra Banks who said that it was the water in her kitchen sink where she bathed her son.
I was going to go to that as the second one.
Yeah.
It was like, was that Tyra Banks?
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah.
Whoa. That was like,
Powerful and
yeah.
beautiful. Everybody's
Yeah.
jaw was dropped open.
Yeah.
Just as when you hear something that is that beautiful and
Yeah.
profound, you're witnessing it, how could you not have a
Yeah.
response like that?
But just to also add to that, Laura, the fact that people are using a journal prompt and it takes them to that place
Mhm.
is exactly why we need journaling,
Yes.
especially in this age of AA. And this will be my very last question to you because I recognize that we're going to have to close off now. We haven't talked about AI, and I'm really curious for you. Do you see it as a threat to our journaling? Do you see, or do you feel that writing by hand is on the up? What would you say to readers about AI versus journaling? What are your thoughts?
Well, it's not a surprise that analog is the word of the year of 2026. Because right now, what we are collectively experiencing is a shift in, for the first time, we really can't believe our eyes.
Mm,
And so the trust deficit that has started to emerge is going to get much worse. Now, one of the ways to counter that is what you're seeing in terms of people craving more in-person, analog experiences and activities
hmm.
coming together in community. So people starting to say, I don't want to meet my partner on an app. I'm going to join a running club. People saying, I don't want to be just sitting on the couch next to my friend, both of us on our phones while we pretend to watch a movie. We're going to a backgammon club. Whatever
Mm-hmm.
those things are, we're starting to see the shift. And by the way, it's the younger ones that
Mm-hmm.
are really leading the charge here because they're saying, you guys screwed up and we don't want to live like you. And they're starting the reclamation, which is so beautiful.
Mm.
As far as AI use goes,
Yeah.
my primary concern is actually environmental.
Mm-hmm.
The water use that is going to be required is going to be
Mm.
extraordinary and is problematic.
Mm-hmm.
My platform is not specifically environmental. However, when you start looking at the data
Yeah.
and what's coming down the road,
Yeah.
that is that is one of the things that deeply concerns me for us collectively. Now, in order to get ourselves out of the big messes, how do we do that? We do that through creativity,
Mm-hmm.
innovation, problem solving, vision. And how do we get there? Journaling.
Mm-hmm.
So structured thought,
Yeah.
best structured thought, and this is Harvard Business Review, it's not just my opinion, right? Is achieved at through journaling.
Yeah.
And we need to stay emotionally buoyant, resi foster resilience, and become more innovative as problem solvers. In order to solve the problems of our time, I truly believe bringing people to the page is one of the answers, is some of the medicine that we are all seeking.
I think there's a bit of movement there, bringing people to the page.
Amen.
The
That's what I
year,
am here to do. Nothing
yeah,
less.
yeah.
Nothing less.
You said it here on the Interviews podcast, Laura,
Yep.
bringing people to the page, you know. I am deeply thankful for our conversation today.
What
At
fun.
it was, yeah, you shared so much. At the end, we often ask our guest speakers to share a practice, but you've shared so many throughout the our conversation today. I'd be really happy to use one of those, unless there is something that you just want to leave the readers with in terms of a practice to close out on.
You know, one of the things that I love to do at the end of the day when I journal, I tend to journal twice a day, morning and evening, which sounds like a lot, but I don't necessarily journal for a long time at either end.
Hmm.
Um, at night, I started doing something that I call a done list. And
Hmm.
we all have a to-do list. We all are trying to accomplish a lot, but we don't actually give ourselves enough credit for showing up as good stewards of ourselves. And so at the end of the day, often as a precursor to my to-do list, I sit down and I write down all of the things that I accomplished, big and small. Maybe I
Hmm.
took all my vitamins. Maybe I refilled the humidifier. Maybe I reached out to a friend who was having a
Yeah,
tough time. What are those things where I showed up as a good steward of myself and my community? Write those things down.
yeah,
It's a little victory lap. Again, it's a small dopamine hit. So you're filling up your sense of accomplishment rather than just going on to the next, the next thing we have to do. So
yeah.
that's a really simple and easy thing that you can add to a journaling practice. And I love to do it at night in bed, but try it out. See how that works for you.
And I love that you said in that chapter, the done list, I think is a really good way of stopping the ruminating and the worrying. But you reminded us in the book that racing drivers, once they've won a race, they do that slower.
It's like a victory lap.
Yeah, I love that.
Yes.
So it
We
really,
just,
really brought that home.
yeah, we just don't get enough opportunities for victory laps in our lives.
Yeah.
And if we don't take them, it's very rare that someone else is going to give them to us. So we really need to bake that into our own practice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
It's
Jackee. What
been
an
a
honor and a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Well,
Truly appreciative.
this was a great conversation. This was Laura Rubin, her new book, The Big Unlock, Liberate Your Creativity Through Mindful Journaling. It's going to be published at the end of March. If you're listening to it afterwards, by Simon and Schuster, you can go on to all good booksellers and purchase the book. You're going to want to purchase it not just for yourself, but for other people in your lives, because I know that this is a book that's going to make a difference. We're really, really glad that we've had an opportunity to have you here on the Interviews podcast, celebrating where slow conversations celebrate the power of the pen. See you soon.
Thank you, Jackee.
Well, welcome back to the Interviews podcast, where slow conversations celebrate the power of the pen. How did you find the interview with Laura today? I really hope that you found some useful tips, tools and techniques. We certainly covered a lot of ground. I really valued Laura's take on the digital distraction that's kind of consuming so much of our time, and just hearing more about the slowing down of journaling and how that is impacting groups that Laura is working with. I found really, really helpful. I really appreciate the fact that Laura went into her journey with cancer, being a cancer survivor, and how journaling really showed up for her on the other side after or during her chemotherapy, and how difficult it was to write during that journaling. I think that sometimes, I don't want to put across the view that journaling is something, it's like a good weather friend that's there all the time. So we really hear how journaling kind of got put on hold, but how it came back and how useful it was. This was a really fruitful conversation. Right at the end, I like Laura's tip around the done list. It's something that I use all the time in my journaling, and it can really help me on those days where I think, what have I done today? I feel like I really have just been a bit aimless. The done list helps me really gather up the evidence, the hard evidence of what has been achieved during the day, which it's amazing. Our minds are amazing. It can so easily forget the stuff that you've done, particularly because we are so distracted. Our mind goes on to, something else so quickly in a nanosecond. You forget the actual concrete, practical things that you've done during the day. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with Laura L. Rubin. You can get her book, The Big Unlock, on Amazon, all independent bookstores. Really support our independent bookstores, both here in the UK and abroad. Really support our booksellers. And I think this is a kind of book, an analogue book, that encourages journaling. Let's give our bookstores some money. Let's, put our money where our mouth is. And I'm saying that to myself as well today. So thank you for tuning in to the Interviews podcast. Please don't forget to rate us over at Spotify and Apple. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast.